Hello and welcome to another exciting episode of The Source. Today we have a very special guest. Special guest, tell us, who are you and what do you do?
I'm Katrina Collier. I'm probably best known, big plug, I'm really so bad, at as the author of the Robot Proof Recruiter. However, now, having spent 2 decades in the industry, I spend most of my time running design thinking workshops with companies to get the talent acquisition function and the managers working together better. That's mostly what I do. Obviously, global keynote speaker, author, have another book coming, mentor, general writer, just, dog's body of the recruitment profession. How about that?
A Renaissance woman. She does it
That's
all.
it. I do it all. Other than actually recruit. I haven't done that for a while. Which is why always with my books, I have so many different voices in there because I'm like, when did you last recruit, Collier? I'm like, yeah, good point. That's
Let
why
people
you're in
know
there.
about your background. Actually, let's start off that
Mm.
way. Give us like a sort of like a 30,000 foot view of your background.
Well, I fell into recruiting because obviously nobody chooses the profession. Actually, that's not true. I've met 2
Hmm.
people in 20 years that chose the profession. But from
Really?
a job, yes, 2.
Wow.
I
Wow.
know. I
Wow. You
know.
should play the lottery. I've never met anyone who said I've chosen to be a recruiter or sourcer or
Never.
for that matter.
I know, it's
It's
crazy, isn't it? Because what we do is so magical. Um, so I did answer a job advertisement from a newspaper. So I fell into recruiting when I moved from Sydney, Australia to London, UK in 2003. I think
mm,
it was. Yeah, that's 21 years. Oh my goodness. No wonder I can't cope. Um, and I spent time agency, then I went in-house for a while. And when I decided to start teaching social recruiting was the 2008-9 crash, which of
mm.
course was kind of early when you think about it. You think of sourcing back then, it was so new. I was a little early. So actually that's when I went in-house for a while. So I started training social recruiting, which I'm sure is when we started coming across each other in 2012. And then I
Yeah.
was tweeting a bit, blogging a bit, and speaking a bit, and just became known because I have an opinion. Hard to believe. Um,
No, yes, yes, no
and we
shortage of
first,
opinions from you.
I know, but they're meant to help the industry. That's the plan. We first met at SourceCon in Dallas, I think in 2015, and you blew my mind because you said you read my blog, and I couldn't believe it.
I did because it's a
I was
great
like,
blog, great stuff.
I know, but I was awed. I was awed. So I did that until about 2018 when Kogan Page actually came to me and said, "Do you want to write a book?" And I went, "Oh yeah, I totally know what I want to write." Even though I didn't know I wanted to write a book, which was obviously about the exaggeration that HR tech can replace recruiters and sources. So look,
The
it's
debate
getting a little
continues to
bit.
this day.
Yeah, it's a bit of a different debate now, but I mean, thankfully, everybody got behind it. So when it was published in 2019, which sort of then led me into design thinking because I wanted to do something different, then so many people purchased it that I was able to write a second edition. So it has had an update in 2022, but it probably could do with another update. Maybe,
Mm.
maybe, don't know. The basics haven't changed. I might have to yell at my dog in a second. Sorry. Everybody loves. Oh no, it's
No
okay. He's
worries.
got up and he's gone quiet. Everyone loves a real podcast.
Do you think people will eventually gravitate towards the lessons that you talk about? Because from what I see, is this wrestling match or a juggling, whatever the best way to describe it, where companies
Mm,
say we could save so much money if we lay people off and hire these magical tools, and then they find out to the contrary, that they sort of pay for it on the back end. What do you think about all that?
yeah.
You think there'll ever be a consensus on
Ju-
this?
It's really interesting time. So I've just written another business book called Reboot Hiring, which
Okay.
is for managers and leaders in the business. So I felt like the Robot Proof Recruiter is for recruiters and sources. This other book is for the people they recruit for. Like, please give it to them. And I've made the case for the importance of talent acquisition and sourcing and the reason that technology cannot do your jobs. But I saw
Mm.
evidence they're already trying,
Mhm.
which fills me with a lot of fear. Um, I feel like talent acquisition, I'm just going to say talent acquisition because it's anyone that works in house. So you might be a sourcer, recruitment coordinator. I'm just going to call it talent acquisition.
Sure.
I feel like you've been through the ringer in the 2020s. You've been fired, hired, fired, and not necessarily rehired. And I worry when I saw some of the things that were going on out there that it's going to be attempted again. But the person that wrote the foreword is a woman called Hilke Schellman, who wrote The Algorithm, which is all about how AI can hijack your career. And she's a journalist. She's an Emmy award-winning journalist. And she was having a conversation with an Uber driver who was talking about the recruitment experience he'd been through. And she just started investigating. And she has just unearthed so much bias. So my
Hmm.
concern is the HR tech vendors are loud. They have marketing budgets, and there's me howling into the wind in the other direction, going, please, please slow down, please. That's like, there's just me and then all of them. So it's easy for companies to fall for it. But if you're using it for sourcing and matching and parsing at the current time, I have concerns. If you're
Hmm.
using tools like, MetaView to do all your note taking and things like that, great, go for it, knock yourself out. But it's all about what you're using, where you're using it, and what's the experience you're creating. Because I still think that we're just putting so much stuff between us and the human being. Like, I want to recruit Jim. I just want to call Jim. Jim, you interested? Like, no, now it's like, here's 1,600 steps you've got to go through just to talk. It's like,
Yeah, I
oh,
wonder. There's so much
complicated.
emphasis on companies from the company side saving money. On the
Mm,
recruiter side, it makes you more efficient. I hear that a lot.
can do.
But I wonder about the candidate side. I mean, how many people are advocating for the candidates who have to endure the process, whether it's good or bad? Do
Mm.
you see many advocates out there saying, think about the candidate, what they have to go through?
Well, there's me and you and Steve Gard from the Circle Back Initiative. There's also
Right.
endghosting.com. 87% of job seekers get down or depressed as an applicant if they don't receive a response. And I'm talking as an applicant. So not people you've interviewed, just applied, you know.
Hmm.
So we have a duty of care. So there are a few, and there is a general, we need to do candidate experience better. We get that. But until it's linked to the bottom line, and until you start linking it to the bottom line, your C suite is never going to give you the money you need to deliver a great candidate experience. And
Yeah.
I see
Yeah.
this happen. I did a project where we went in and we talked about the new process, and it was all going to be very candidate centric and human, human, human. And then they rolled out an ATS, which was a HRIS add on, unfit for purpose, and
Hmm.
was about to make it so that they were going to get probably 2-3 times the number of applicants. And we were already talking they were getting 500 or 600 a role. And I was like, yeah, so they're not going to have any time. So yeah, interesting. But the Steve Gard, keep an eye on him, because Benchmarks have just put out an interesting tool that actually links to the bottom line, because there's
Okay.
only one case study about bad candidate experience and the cost to the bottom line, and that's Virgin Media here in the UK. It's crazy. There's one case study, but
Yeah.
he's looking to solve that. So he could be a great person to talk to as well.
I
Get on
I
your
forgot I was
show.
going to mention the Virgin Media because that always
Mm.
seems to pop up.
It's the only
Um,
one, and that's at
yeah,
8,
but it's
9,
the
10
only
years
one.
old. I mean, yeah.
I
I,
think it
I
probably
mean,
would take more if you had maybe 3, 5, 10 cases where people
mm,
can prove how a candidate experience impacts the bbottom line.
yeah.
It would
Do you
change
know the?
probably overnight.
Oh, absolutely. And I think the other thing that I want to see all recruiters and or like anyone working within a company who wants more funding, okay, you must know who your star hires are. I am quite shocked that people don't know. I hired Jim. He saved the company $3 million. I brought this person in. They increased productivity 10%. Like, they don't know who they hired and well, they know who they hired, but they don't know the results of the person they hired. You
Hmm.
must. And then you must be voicing that all the time, every conversation. Oh, do you want another Jim? Jim brought us in millions. Is that what you're after? Back yourselves up, show your value, show your worth. We are the people that hire the people for a company, which decides its fate. Like, the people decide its fate. So we need to know our stats. And I'm not seeing that enough. It was, again, researching for Reboot Hiring, and I'm asking, who are your star hires? Very few people knew.
Yeah.
And I'm
Yeah.
talking people that we know who I'd expect to know.
Yeah. 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 And I can see that because they're being pushed by their clients. Okay, find me another one. Okay, find me
Mhm,
another one. Find me this. Find me that by
mhm,
Friday. And
mhm.
so they don't have either the time, or maybe it's not just in their process to go back. Okay, let me look at my
Yeah,
hires from 90 days ago, for a year ago. Where are they now?
yeah,
I don't know anyone who really does that, whether they're on the agency side or they're on the corporate side. Really, not too many
yeah.
people take the time to do that. But I see it would be to their advantage to do
It
that.
would totally be to their advantage because I genuinely think that there are really trying times ahead. I haven't been
Yeah.
terribly bothered. The internet created a huge change. Agencies lost their little private books of contacts. Suddenly, everyone was on the internet. Thanks to the crash of 2008-9, actually. Without it, it'd be
Mm.
interesting to see what happened. So that was huge. And I haven't really been bothered by anything until I saw how AI is being used and its potential. And the fact that companies could go, do you know what we need to cost? We need to cut costs. They perceive TA as a cost center because you're not telling them that you're not by knowing your star hires. So we're going to get rid of more of you. It is going to be a monumental mess up. Um, and it's going to, but that'll be great for agency side. I think I do see them benefiting from this, and then eventually it'll roll reverse. And in the middle of that, are the poor job seekers getting screwed over. But if you don't show your value, you'll be one of the first ones out the door.
Sure.
Mm,
You know what would be interesting is that as you say that, I'm thinking it would be this would be an interesting case study, right?
mm,
You have one company totally automated, all AI, and then you have another company that's totally human, no,
mm,
or very few tools, right?
mm.
And then you compare the candidate experience between people who actually talk to people versus the people who use automation. And I imagine there'll
Yeah,
be some pluses and minuses. Maybe the automation
for
side will be
sure.
able to process more, but the human side will be able to give that interpersonal connection that'll
Mm.
probably boost the employer brand uh, overall.
I guess
That's what I speculate would happen. Have you heard of a
it
case study like that, or have you?
N
What do you speculate?
no, and I think it depends what you're hiring. So Yodel here, I'm sure I mentioned them in the Robot Proof Recruiter. They're a courier company, so they recruit
Mm,
drivers, and the drivers log on at 11 o'clock at night. So having a chatbot that runs through most of the job application, fantastic for them. Like you can automate that way. Do you have a driver's license? Do you have a criminal conviction? Can you lift a package that's 32 kilos? And yes, yes, oh, fine, blah, oh, no, no, yes. And off you go. You're like through the process. And that really helped them, but it's a repetitive role and it's a very simple one to qualify.
mm,
So I can see it. I guess it would depend. If you were doing like for like there, the human would lose. But if it's, something more challenging, it's in
mm,
the energy transition projects, where people there's fewer of them, then it's going to be a lot harder. It needs a lot more human interaction to get people to engage and then stay engaged. Just think is the big thing, isn't it? Keeping people in the process. I know
yeah,
right now everybody thinks it's an employer's market, and I get
yeah,
that, but I kind of see,
I do.
yeah, but I
The way they're
also think
treating
it's
people,
going to
you can
swing.
almost tell by the way they treat the candidates. The worse the candidate, the more it's the employer's market, and when it's not when it's more the candidate
Mm,
market, they're treating you a little bit better. I've noticed.
I think
That's
in
just
some
my
industries, but
skeptical view.
I genuinely think it's going to swing back and it's going to swing back faster
Yeah.
than people think. And then it's going to be quite amusing to see. But I think as long as there's a big internet out there, and I guess because I grew up without it, I was talking to, Denise Pereira. I was talking to
Hmm.
her earlier. I know you know her. And she said something, and I went, we didn't have that in the 80s. I think she was talking about, oh, yeah, writing an online journal in her teens. I just went, I had a typewriter. I got excited when I got corrected tape my typewriter, but yeah. But I think because we didn't have the internet, I think Gen X is like really good and really curious, and we get what we have. But I think as long as there is an internet and people can see those jobs, there's always options. There's always options. You might do something you don't want to be doing for a while. You might be just delivering parcels for a while, but
Yeah.
at least you have choice. As you and I remember, we didn't. We had the Sunday newspaper and no visibility and no choice back in the day. So I
Yeah.
still feel it's a candidate's market. I think even
Hmm.
people who are desperate, if they're treated really badly, will just go, yeah, no.
Hmm. It's gonna be a good time to be an Uber, or a Lyft or some kind of
Mm,
package delivery, if you could treat, because these are people, I imagine, I don't know any of the stats, but I imagine these are
mm,
people who are hustling to make ends meet. I mean, it's
mhm.
hard to find people, I think, who don't have at least one job and one hustle, or at least one hustle on the side, you know.
Really?
And
Wow.
I think that if I were Uber, I would do a survey. Are we your side hustle? What's your
Mm.
main job? Is your main job software
Oh, got you.
development?
Yeah.
Oh, well, that's good to know. Is your
Mm.
main job
Great
business
way to
analyst or
hire.
something? That's good to know. And then hire among the people who are
Mm.
using the company as a side hustle. I think that would
Everybody
be.
listening, that is a source's brain right there.
Oh yeah.
Curious, right? Like, oh, where can
Yeah.
I find people? I don't need to find them on LinkedIn and send an in mall. Steve Levy.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I can, oh, I can actually just go to my people and see source's brain. That level of curiosity is just, oh, it's exquisite. There is not enough curiosity in recruitment. It's extraordinary. We interview people, but we lack curiosity. It just makes no sense. Sorry,
Yeah,
you were
because
saying something.
no, 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 no. I was just saying that's one of my pet peeves because generally when someone gets a new rec, they rush off to
Mm,
LinkedIn, right?
yeah.
And they don't look inside their own applicant tracking system for
Hmm.
people
Oh, they
that
don't have
who've
one.
already expressed an interest.
Yeah.
It just drives me nuts, right?
Silver
That should be the
medalists.
first place anybody should go.
Yeah, silver medalists, boomerang hires, and return
Yes,
to workers as well. Gosh, could we give them a break, please? Job shares,
definitely,
flexibility. Ugh, yeah.
definitely. I
I'd love to
think
see all of that.
who was it? I think it was Walmart Labs. Shout out to Randy Bailey, formerly of Walmart. They had this return to work program for people who wanted to come.
Mm,
If you were someone who were off the job market for a while because you were taking care of
mhm.
an ailing parent,
Yeah.
then
Oh,
they gave
lovely.
you special grace to work for them, get your profile current, and then off you go to somewhere else. So kudos
Amazing.
to them for that. That was Walmart Labs that was doing that.
Yeah, there are some good return to worker programs out there.
Hmm.
But as well, I mean, that's fishing in your own pool. You already know these people. You already know what they're like, and do you want to come back?
Yeah.
It's not always great on the other side.
I one of the stats I would like to look up, and maybe
Mm,
you know this from your side of the pond, but what is the ratio maybe of entrepreneurs? Like imagine, I just think with so many people out of
mm.
work,
Yeah.
especially if a bunch of them were laid off from the same company, to say, hey, we
Mm,
got the talent, why don't we form our own enterprise,
mm,
and
mm.
then go after our former bosses. Now that you don't have that non-disclosure, was it not non-disclosure, a non-compete
Yeah.
thing that we have now, where they're outlawing that. I don't know the specifics of it, but without the non-competes, a lot of people
Interesting.
could start their own businesses and
Yeah.
compete against their former employers.
And also for anyone listening who thinks, oh, but we're in a dodgy climate. We are in a very dodgy climate. This is true. However, look at how many companies started in 2008 and 2009. I mean, that's when
True,
I set out. It took me a bit to get going. Mostly that was
true.
my own fault. I needed to heal some stuff. Don't have childhood stuff to heal. Get rid of that first before you start your business. Just a thought. But but it is amazing how from something like that you're suddenly like, well, actually, I don't have a salary now. I've got this idea. Why don't I give it a punt and see what happens? And just make sure if you're going to go and do it on your own, it is something that makes you sit up and buzz because you're going to need all of your energy to get something off the ground. So if it all makes you slump, the answer is no. So you've got to feel this excitement, and then you can create anything. I think due to the internet and our access to people and that there are gaps, it's just possible to do anything.
Definitely, definitely, and it would be a lot easier if you were doing it with. And it definitely be easier if you're doing it with people you've already worked with in the past, for sure.
Yeah.
Um, this time has flown by. I know there are probably 100 questions I want to ask you that I don't have time for. There's probably 101 questions other people want to ask you. How can
Mm.
people find you online if they want to follow up with you?
So Google me. Or use some other search engine. But katrinacollier.com or come to LinkedIn. Also, anybody that pre-orders Reboot Hiring before the 29th of August, so say order it by the 28th of August, you will see on my website that there are freebies, and you will also get an exclusive invitation to the online book launch, which is currently showing the wrong date. I'm pretty confident it's going to be on September the 11th. And there are 2 times. So there's a European time, and then there's a US based time. So
Nice.
I'm excited. I've got some fun surprises coming up for that. So please, the
Ooh,
only way I'm going to get it in front of managers and leaders is if you buy it and hand it to them. So it starts the snowball, which is, because I don't have that audience. I have a recruiter audience. So please pre-order
yes.
like 5
Not only
copies.
can you learn, but you can make a sizable
Yeah.
social impact on the world of
Yes.
work that's truly needed.
It really says everything recruiters want to say to their managers and can't. I have been stunned at how much Wiley have allowed me to keep in it. I thought they might go, "That's a bit direct." But I just felt like it was needed and its aim is good. And if you feel I'm shamelessly plugging, authors make nothing from books, so please buy 5.
Buy them in bulk.
Buy in
Pass
bulk,
them
hand them to your
around.
managers, make our lives better. Save a recruiter
Exactly.
today.
Exactly.
Thanks, Jim. You always let me have a shameless plug.
My pleasure. Katrina Collier, thank you for being on The Source. You are
You.
appreciated.
You are too.
One, two, three, jump! Wow.